So basically, here's an overview I want you to pay attention to. So basically, this is a Form 943. And so what you want to do here is that you want to actually put your name, your first name, last name. So here we're speaking about your personal name, not your trade name. And then you have to put your EIN, so your employer identification number. You have to put your trade name, if any, and the address, so the street, the city, and the zip. Okay, and it's one of those things where you want to actually be as transparent as possible. So if the address is actually different from a prior return, you want to click there, as you can see on the screen here. And if you don't have to file returns in the future, check the appropriate box. In other words, if you're closing your farm or any kind of situation is happening, or you're filing for bankruptcy, for instance, then you want to specify that as well. And here you want to actually on line 1, you want to put the number of agricultural employees employed in the pay period that includes March 12, 2023. So here we put 25. So you want to specify the number of applicable force, let's say employees that are really are in this particular return, and you want to put the wages subject to your Social Security tax. So here we put $1 million, and you want to specify the qualified sick leave wages. It's one of those things where your situation might be different from ours, but we actually put this for sake of this exercise. And you want to put the qualified family leave wages here as well. So we put 100,000. So you can see that basically, if you on line 3, Social Security tax, you want to multiply line 2 by 12.4%. And so line 3A, you have the appropriate form, and line 3B, you have the appropriate form also. So we have $9,300 and $6,200. Okay, and now the wages subject to Medicare taxes in our case here is those wages are amount to $1 million, and on line 5 we actually did the calculation, and that amounted to $29,000. So in other words, you multiply 1 million times 2.9%. Okay, and so line 7, additional Medicare tax, you have to follow the rules. And line 8, federal income tax withheld, you put the number here. We put $200,000, and total taxes, if you add all those amounts, we have in our case $368,500. By the way, boss, welcome back to the show. It's really a pleasure to have you here. Make yourself comfortable. You are going to enjoy today's conversation. So let's just continue with line 11 here. So basically, total taxes after adjustments. So you put, we put, it's the same amount in our case because there are no adjustments. There are $368,500. And so line 12 all the way to 12A to 12G does not apply to us. And so total taxes here after adjustments and non-refundable credits in our case here, we have the same amount, $368,500. Okay. And moving on to the next section here. So 14A. So here you have to actually let the IRS know what kind of deposits you made this year. So in our case, we actually deposited $350,000, and then this is actually through all 4 quarters, though. Okay, and it's one of those things where, again, remember, if we're talking about making sure you comply with the tax regulations, you have to make sure that you keep records, because if the IRS were to ever audit your let's say your agricultural entity, you want to make sure you have the proper records. Okay, and so in our case, $350,000. And line 14H, it says total deposits and refundable credits, and it's the same amount here. And the balance due, we owe actually $18,500 because we actually deposited less than we actually owed. And how did we get the $18,500? If you go back a little up to the previous screenshot, we actually the total taxes after adjustments and refundable credits actually amounted to $368,500. Okay, and then we deposited $350,000. So you can see the delta there is $18,500. So this is now maybe in your case the scenario is totally different. You actually deposited way more than you actually owed. In that case, you actually can claim a refund, or you can ask the IRS to apply the overpayment to a next period. So every situation is different. And don't forget to claim some credits if they're applicable to you, because in our case here, for sake of simplicity, we did not claim any credit at all. By the way, boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about Form 943. So moving on here on line 17, you can see here that line 17 actually 17 breaks down the monthly summary of federal tax liability, and it's one of those things where you can see that we put the tax liability for every month from January all the way to December. Now, do not use this. Don't complete this section if you are a semi-weekly scheduled depositor. This section is only for the monthly scheduled depositor. Okay, and so you can see that we put all the monthly amounts, and all the total amounts must be $368,500. Okay, and so this is what we put on line M. Line M, as you can see on the screen, and we had no qualified health plans and expenses allocable to qualified sick leave wages, and so line 18 and 19 we left that blank. Next, line 22 all the way through line 28. We're going to put this on the screen so you have a clear idea. I mean, those lines do not apply to our specific agricultural entity. If they do apply to you, please do you want to fill out the form? If you have any questions, please let us know in the comment section, and one of our team members will get back to you, okay? And please, when you ask questions, let us know your location. Location is really important, your city and state. So the city and state you are actually operating from. And so at the bottom here, you can see, so line, so yeah, everything is fine. Now you put, if there is a third party designee, if there is a CPA that you actually hire to prepare this Form 943 on your behalf, you want the person to put his or her name there, the CPA and EA, a tax attorney. So you want to put the person's name, and you want to put the person's phone number, so the IRS can actually reach out to them if they have a question. And you also want the third-party designee to actually include his or her PIN, okay? And then you have to sign. Please don't forget to sign the form. You have to sign it and date it. And so if you have a paid preparer, the third-party designee or somebody else, you want that person to put his or her credentials, his or her information there. This is, again, the IRS wants to make sure that they can actually reach out to the paid preparer if there is any question, if there are any comments, and so on and so forth. Let me give you an overview of Form 943. So again, when we talk about Form 943, we are strictly talking about agricultural employers, and so it's one of those things where you need to understand it so this form is used to report wages paid to agricultural workers and to calculate and pay federal taxes on those wages. Okay, and so this is now who needs to file Form 943 really? Well, the thing is that Form 943 is used by agricultural employers to actually report things like if you work on farms, if you work on a ranch, or if you have any other type of agricultural business, and it's one of those things where the IRS has a pretty strict definition of who qualifies though. So an agricultural employer is defined as an individual or organization that hires farm workers, including farmers, ranchers, and agricultural cooperatives, and so to determine if you need to file Form 943, there are two tests. If you pay cash wages of $150 or more to a farm worker during the calendar year, or if the total cash and non-cash wages paid to all farm workers in the previous calendar year are at least $2,500. So if either of these tests is met, Form 943 must be filed. You got to file that form. The due date for filing and paying taxes is generally January 31st of the year following the tax year. Okay, and it's one of those things where you have to really always make sure that you are complying with the rules. And the IRS again wants to make sure that when you fill out Form 943, you want to actually put your contact information. You want to put your contact information. So we're speaking here about your phone number, your email in some cases, your mailing address. Don't forget to put your EIN. I think I said this at the beginning of the year. Beginning of the show. You got to indicate your EIN. And please, also, if there are some business financial records for the year, including employee wages, please add them as well. So when we talk about business financial records, we're speaking about your financial statements, okay? You have like your balance sheets, your of course you have to mention your payroll records, that's for sure, but you have to also mention your balance sheet, your statement of cash flow, your income statement, and in some cases your statement of owner's equity. By the way, boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about Form 943 for this year. So to file Form 943, the process is pretty straightforward, okay? And please make sure that you obtain the form. I mean, you can download it from the IRS website, or you can call a number 1-800-TAX-FORM. So 1-800-829-3676. So once you have the form, review the instructions carefully to ensure that you have all the information that you need to complete it. And it's one of those things where you always have the opportunity also to file this form electronically. So you just have to have the proper software. You can have Tax Act or H&R Block or TurboTax. I mean, whatever I would say tax software you use, just make sure they have a Form 943. And so, but if you were to do things manually, once you obtain the form itself, you just fill out the form. That's sort of similar to what I showed you a little earlier. Okay, you have to put your basic information. It's a pretty straightforward form though, nothing really complicated. So you have to report the total wages paid to agricultural workers during the year, and this includes any bonuses, vacation pay, or other forms of compensation. And it's, again, you got to have the proper records to back up whatever amount you put on the form, because again, God forbid if you were audited, the IRS wants to have a clear idea that the amounts you are reporting to the government those amounts match what you have in your records, and the IRS is going to trace how much you are declaring to the agency versus how much you are declaring to state tax agencies, but also how much you paid actually to the workers, and how their Form W-2 or 1099 for that matter look like. Okay, and so once you do everything, submit the form and any required payments. And again, you have the opportunity to submit the form electronically and also make any potential payments electronically. And everything happens through a platform called EFTPS. So this is the IRS's. It's a platform for payments. So EFTPS stands for Electronic Federal Tax Payment System. It's very straightforward, and that's one of those things where the payment is made right away. And especially if you are actually fighting against a deadline, you have the opportunity to actually file quickly so that you can avoid a penalty. So when we talk about filing Form 943, it's really important to understand that the instructions are pretty self-explanatory. Okay, you enter the total number of agricultural employees. You have to enter the total cash wages subject to Social Security tax. I think I've showed you earlier. You have to multiply by 12.4%. Again, pretty straightforward in terms of the calculations. And one thing I want to say here is that if you have any questions that relate to your specific situation, please let us know in the comment section, and one of our team members will get back to you to sort of contextualize things for you and really explain more. Because see, every business is different. So, but please just let us know the states and the city and state you are actually commenting from, and so we have a clear idea how to structure our answer. One thing I want to say here is that when you go from line 1 all the way through line 17 or 17, and from line 18 to line 27, it's important to really understand that whatever amount you put on the form, that amount, going back to what I said about tracing, you have to be able to trace those amounts. In other words, if the IRS were to ask you to justify those amounts, you have the proper evidence, you have the proper receipts, you have the proper payment vouchers, you have everything to really justify that the amounts you're putting on Form 943 actually matches the total, the summation, the sum of all the data that you have on your let's say your documents. One thing I also want to say here is that please, you always have the option to file things electronically. And nowadays we see a lot of small businesses filing Form 943 electronically, and it's one of those things where you want to make sure that the IRS gets paid real fast, and you also avoid actually some mistakes. I mean, when you file electronically, you have the advantage of using computer sort of computer forms that are updated all the time. Okay, and please don't forget that if your business qualifies for a tax credit, you want to enter the amount, the proper amount on line 12, and you want to fill out Form 8974, and you want to attach it to the completed Form 943. Because before closing to this conversation, I want to say one thing, and it's really important to understand that when we talk about filing Form 943, of course, I've already told you you can file the form electronically, but if you were to file a form manually, you need to understand that it's one of those things where you want to make sure that the address matches the address the IRS has specified for your specific farm, your specific agricultural entity. And so the mailing address will vary based on the location of your business, and you can find the appropriate mailing address for your location by consulting the instructions on a Form 943, or just let us know in the comment section. Just let us know, and we'll do the research, and we'll get back to you and get back to you with the right address. But it's just a lot better, as I've said before, to actually file the form electronically. That way, everything is fast and hopefully accurate. Okay. So when we talk about paper filing, you just have to remember that you have to contact the IRS, okay? Because see, when you go to the IRS website, you might have a form 943 that's a little outdated. So it's always important to contact the agency. Again, the number is 1-800-TAX form. So you have a clear idea of so you have the latest tax form that you really need, okay? And it's one of those things where you have to understand it's you got to have all the records. When you're filing manually, you got to have all your records. You got to have also any kind of, just don't forget to attach the payment voucher in case you owe a certain amount of tax amount. If you have a tax liability that's really applicable to your situation, do not forget to actually file the form ASAP. Now, one thing I want to say is that there are some Form 943 penalties. So to avoid penalties and interest charges, make sure to deposit or pay taxes on time, file a completed Form 943 on time, report tax liability accurately, submit valid tax payments, provide employees with accurate Forms W-2, and file Form W-3 and copy A of Form W-2 with the Social Security Administration on time. And penalties and interest are charged on late taxes and returns at a legally set rate, details of which can be found in sections 7 and 8 of publication 51. Okay, so to request penalty or interest abatement, use Form 843 and not Form 943, or you can use Form 943X. Okay, and so there are common mistakes to avoid when filing Form 943. So failing to accurately report the total wages paid to agricultural workers, failing to withhold and report the correct amount of federal income tax, Social Security, and Medicare taxes, failing to file the form by the deadline. And if you encounter any issue, it's just a lot better to contact the IRS for assistance. And so the IRS provides a number of resources for employers, including a phone support and online help. So if you receive a notice from the IRS regarding your Form 943, it is important to respond promptly and provide any requested information. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. Let's do a quick recap here. So I gave you an overview into this conversation, and then finally I spoke to you about the steps you need to follow to actually file Form 943. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.